If you're like me, you have been using AI to write code like crazy. I've been writing code with AI for a while now, and it has been a superpower. It's given me some amazing capabilities. I've been able to finish up projects much faster than I thought I would. And it has actually given me some real value add in terms of creating proof of concepts, creating small demonstration applications, and so on. And it has been a game changer for my productivity. But you might have noticed that it makes you a little bit dumber. So let's talk a little bit about this and let's look at how you can overcome this as a vibe coder. Let's start off with an important question. What is vibe coding? Now, vibe coding is basically us using AI tools to generate code or write code for us. Basically, it means that the coder has surrendered to the vibes and the will of the AI to create whatever they want based on a specification, based on the instructions they give it. The idea is that the AI takes over and you're just using prompts to be able to debug and check whether things are working. And if they're not working, you post those error messages to the AI and the AI gives you responses and you continue and you basically build the product of your dreams. That's basically what vibe coding is. And if you've not been living under a rock, you probably know that people have been doing this for a while now. At least for the last few months, you've seen an explosion in the vibe coding space with tools like Cursor and Windsurf and so on coming into the picture. I myself, like I said, use Cursor to be able to do a whole bunch of vibe coding for myself. But there was one disturbing trend that I noticed when I started doing this. And it kind of was that this made me dumber. So that I feel that vibe coding definitely made me lose a few IQ points and basically, in some ways, made my ability to actually write code worse. Now, let's give you a little bit of background about me. I write code pretty much every day. I write Python, and this has been happening for the last 3 to 4 years. I consider myself an okayish coder. I'm not elite coder. I'm not the best in what I do, but definitely I am a power user when it comes to coding. I do pretty well in terms of writing code. I build products that are used by hundreds of thousands of people, and I consider myself a reasonably good coder. Not the best, but certainly not the worst. So, this is something that I do quite regularly and quite often. I'm certainly not one of those people who just woke up one day, realized that there is AI and I can build whatever product I want and just went and used Cursor and started building something. It was not the case at all. Or I actually know what I'm doing for the most part. But I noticed a disturbing trend when I started using these AI coding tools that I was literally surrendering everything to these tools. And a lot of times I was surrendering things I did not need to surrender as well. Just a simple function that I needed to fix or some arguments that I needed to add or some, the return that I needed to add. I used to just literally have AI do the whole thing and just keep getting it to fix things and fix things and fix things and fix things. This was one kind of destroying my instincts for whatever I had been doing for a while now. And two, it was actually making the whole process a lot slower because AI was kind of taking over. And obviously, AI doesn't have context as to what exactly I want. And even with a good deal of prompting with cursor rules and so on and so forth, I was finding that it was taking way longer for me to do things. So, what I thought was that I needed a better way to handle this, and definitely something that I needed to fix in terms of not making myself dumber and not permanently destroying my instincts to actually code and figure out something that I perhaps didn't know that AI could help me with. So these are some of the things that I came up with in terms of my own journey in stepping away from vibe coding to a little bit more deliberate AI assisted coding with a little bit of a co-pilot like thing. This is what I did to make that transition, and I've started using this and I feel much better already, even though it's just been a couple of days since I've been starting to do this. Now, before I get into how I actually stopped giving into 100% vibe coding and basically used AI as a useful co-pilot, I want to mention that I still intend to use AI quite a lot in my workflow, simply because it's a force multiplier in terms of productivity. So I certainly don't want anyone here to think that don't use AI or AI is bad or something like that. I certainly don't think so. I feel AI is very useful. It helps you do a lot of things much faster. And end of the day, we want to go faster. We want to build things. We want to ship things. That's really what we want. So the first thing I did was basically I made sure that I started to give much more detailed instructions in Cursor or whatever coding tool that I was using. Very detailed instructions on each and everything that I wanted to build. And largely it was instructions related to boilerplate. Boilerplate means different things to different people. For you, boilerplate might just be the overall structure. For some people, it may be boilerplate plus all the CRUD functionality in an application. I don't know what that means to you, but for me, it was largely in terms of the structure, a little bit of the objects, the models, basic things like database connections and so on, and maybe some very basic CRUD operations. But for more business logic or heavy processing type of functionality, or even functionality that required a lot of interactions with third-party systems, I wrote that code myself. It was just easier because I was able to do that much faster. And because I wrote very detailed instructions to Cursor and so on, and I'll probably do this as another video, I was able to get this a lot more, not just standardized, but I was able to get it a lot more productive. And remember, I only write things in languages and frameworks that I am fully aware of. So I typically write in Python or Go, or very rare cases, JavaScript as well. But it's only in these 2-3 languages that I typically work in, and I only make sure of that. So I don't typically strain to languages and frameworks like, let's say, Rust or C that I'm not fully aware of or I'm not really good at. So I don't get into that, but I typically stick to things that I know. That is one thing that I did to address the whole potential for me completely losing my coding instincts and getting out of vibe coding and into like a co-pilot or assisted coding from that standpoint. The second thing is something that I'm going to show you as a demo. So before I get into it, I just want to talk about what I did in the second thing. In the second thing, so let's say there was something that I wanted to do and I didn't understand it to begin with. I would essentially give the AI editor what I wanted and then ask it to explain it to me first. I would read through the explanation first, understand what it is, and then go about either implementing it myself, because I like to learn by writing commands out myself, or implementing it through the AI editor. Now, this is something that I think that a lot of people should be doing, because a lot of times this is a great way to learn yourself, and that will help learn things much more completely because the AI is walking you through it. So I'm going to just do a quick demo on how you can do something like this. And I'm going to use Cursor for the demo, but I'm sure you can do this with any other AI editor that you use, the AI editor of your choice. So I'm going to walk you through a simple example of what I did to actually learn something. So imagine that I wanted to learn this concept. I kind of know this concept already, but let's say I wanted to learn this concept before Cursor built it out. So in this case, the concept is basically this. I have a Python application. I'm also using an identity provider called Citadel, and I essentially want AI to build out Kubernetes manifests for this stuff based on existing Docker Compose specifications that already exist. So this is what I really want to do. So if you see, I want a Caddy web server, I want a Python web application, and I have a Citadel application, Postgres database for Citadel. This is really what I want to do. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially upload this file. I'm going to upload this image to Cursor, and I'm going to add the Docker file, and I'm also going to add the Docker Compose. And the first thing, so the Docker Compose essentially has specifications for there is a Citadel container already, there is a app container, there's Postgres, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm not going to use agent mode, I'm going to use ask mode, which means that I don't want it to actually write code. I want to first understand what it's doing. So I'm then going to write what I'm actually going to write, which is I need Kubernetes manifests for the deployment described in the image. There is a reference Docker Compose manifest for you to analyze for this. I want you to walk through in detail the solution, explain to me step by step how you would implement this, and generate the required manifests for a Kubernetes deployment. I can add something like this. I can add additional instructions in some case. Since I know Kubernetes quite well, I would also say that give me config maps, etc., and all of that stuff. And then I would ask it to explain, walk me through the whole thing. So the idea here is that I have this particular Docker Compose. I have a whole bunch of stuff here, which is not what I want. I have this Docker file and I want it to work like this, right? So I want for me to understand in detail what it is that I'm doing for before I actually go about implementing it. This is especially in the case where I don't know something or I'm not at all very comfortable with that particular subject. This is what I would do in that particular case. So in this case, you would see that it gives me details about what I need to do. And so it gives me a namespace specification. Probably I don't need this. I may choose to avoid it. I may not need to create a namespace, but then it's creating a stateful set, which is useful to do because stateful sets are used ideally by databases for us to actually deploy databases, and that's good to do. It's also added volumes. It's then created the service for Citadel, which is an identity provider. It's also created the secrets or examples of secrets if I want. And this may be something I want to use, or I might want to use an external secrets provider, but whatever it is, it's walking me through a very detailed specification of how it could be done. And this is again with Caddy, because Caddy is the web server that I want to use. And basically the idea is that it is walking me through the whole thing step by step. The idea of this is that I learn from this first, and then I go about actually implementing it rather than just blindly just trusting the IDE to do it and me never knowing how to do it. The problem with just blind vibe coding is that if you need to debug something, which you will have to eventually, or change something, you will just not be able to do it because all of those instincts are gone and the knowledge is probably not there as well. So this is going to be a huge problem for a lot of developers in the future. And I predict that a lot of products are going to be maintenance nightmares simply because people don't know and they've just vibe coded their way into building these products. So I encourage all of you to think about this. These strategies have helped me personally, and I think it will also help you. So what do you think you can do additionally? Please write in the comments. I'll be happy to hear what you think.